guys, it's Amanda with Balanced Life Solutions. I am doing another book review today of just a good resource that I think is good to have in your tool belt. And just a reminder, I am a licensed professional counselor. I have degrees in counseling and psychology and child learning and development, and so I've been working with kids and other people with mental illness for almost 15 years now. And I really love helping out parents find resources that I think will be really valuable to them. And so a resource I'm sharing today is an oldie but a goodie, and it's called Siblings Without Rivalry. What I really like about this book is that it really gives you some concrete steps about how to handle conflicts between your children, which, like, I want to say I read a study once that said even in the most healthy sibling relationships, kids tend to argue once every 13 minutes. That's a lot. So even in the best relationships, they still bicker. It's just part of sibling rivalry. And so this book is really nice because it gives you some good concrete tools and things to say and rationales behind why you should say them. Now, I'll be honest, I tried to look up more information on the authors, and I didn't really see any specific credentials. However, like I said, this book has been around almost like longer than I've been alive. And it's got a pretty good reputation. It's by the same authors that also wrote How to Talk So Kids Will Listen and Listen So Kids Will Talk. But I just really, really like this book because it does a good job of kind of putting parents in the shoes of a child. Not to say that we weren't kids, obviously we were. But it just puts a lot of good things into perspective. Like they put out there, like, how would you feel as a spouse if all of a sudden your spouse came home with a new spouse and was like, hey, this is my new wife, please accept her into the family and be cool with it. And, you would probably be like, what? So that's kind of how they start to frame some of the ways that children may feel about new siblings or things like that. And so it's kind of broken down into various chapters about, like, how would your reaction be if you felt that way, or if somebody said that to you in your context. So some of the stuff that I like is they have like a little recap at the end of each chapter. And so it really talks about what you would probably normally do and what you should do instead, which I think is really valuable because a lot of us use these phrases and we don't even realize that they may be, I don't want to say harmful, but counterproductive. And so I really like that it talks about things about what you should be saying because, especially for kids, because their language is not developed, you may think that, if you say, stop standing, the opposite side of that coin is, well, then you should sit. Well, kiddos, because their language isn't developed well enough, they oftentimes will have a minute to be like, well, if she doesn't want me to stand, what does she want me to do? Oh, she wants me to sit. It takes a while for their brain to process that. And so it just gives a really nice examples of how to speak to your kids in a way that they will understand immediately what you want. And so one of my big things that I always tell parents is don't tell kids what you don't want them to do, tell them what you do want them to do. And that is very much what's in line within this book. And so, when talking about like acknowledging brothers or sisters' feelings about another sibling, it says things like use words that identify the feeling. You feel really you sound really furious. That seems to really upset you. Or their wishes. You wish that they wouldn't go into your room without asking, to really show that you are receiving their message and you understand where they're coming from. So I really like that it has those types of things in there for parents to use with a little recap at the end of each chapter. The other thing that it talks about is our innate sense to compare, which I think in general we just always do that. That's why that whole like grass is greener on the other side, phrase exists. And somebody once told me comparison is the thief of joy. And I really feel like that's accurate. So it talks about that in the context of comparing kids to each other, comparing your children to each other. So, it's not so much, why can't you do that because your brother Johnny can? It's more of like, they say things like describe what you see, like I see a jacket on the floor instead of your brother picked up his jacket. So I think I really love that it talks about that, because it is something that I feel like a lot of people innately want to do, is compare themselves to others. And so when we as parents, which by the way, I am a parent, I have 3 kiddos of my own. When we do that, that really just kind of heightens that, kind of irrational belief of needing to compare ourselves to others. And so we don't want to perpetuate that with our kiddos. The other thing that I really, really like about this, and I'm also a former special ed teacher, and so this really speaks to me, is that the book recommends that you treat children uniquely, not equally, which, like I said, as a former special ed teacher, is very true, because, like, if my student was dyslexic, they might need more time to read through their test than their non-dyslexic peer. And so, they're not treated equally because their needs are different. And so basically that talks about that in the book as well. And so I'm really a big fan of that, like each of my children are really unique, and I know that some activities that I do with one kid is not going to speak to the other kid, and that's totally fine, and that's appropriate to do things in different ways, because they're different people. And that goes along with punishment too. Like if I were to revoke TV for one kid, that may not be as powerful as revoking playtime outside for another kid. So I really like that they talk about that in this book as well. And then one of the last things that they discuss that I really think is valuable is how children will try to fit into a role that either we ascribe to them or that they kind of pick up implicitly. So it may be a thing like, oh, well, Johnny is the smart brother, and so I'm going to be the athletic brother. And really being aware of not labeling our kids in that way, so they don't feel compelled to kind of like fit in a box. So I really appreciate that, because, I think that we do it with all best intentions of like recognizing that, oh, you seem to be naturally inclined to be athletic, or you seem to be naturally inclined in math or whatever. But that can really be counterproductive in the long run. So, I really think it's great. I think it's a great resource. Especially if you feel like your kids are just like tearing at each other's throats like wild animals, which, let's be honest, like that happens a lot in sibling relationships. It's totally normal, but at the same time, when you give them these tools, especially as children, that's also going to help be able to regulate their emotions in other contexts outside of their siblings, and also be able to start to learn how to build some resilience and learn some good coping mechanisms. And so this really gives you a way of like ushering that in without taking that responsibility from them. So great book, highly recommend it. Everyone that I've recommended it to has had great things to say about it. I'm going to put a link below where you can buy it on Amazon. I'll get a little bit of kickback if you decide to buy it through there. And I'm also going to link my website, balancedsolutionsTX.com. So if you want to read my blog, I often do blogs on parenting and behavior, depression, anxiety, time management, all kinds of good stuff. Please check it out there. That would be awesome. And if you have any questions, or if there's any other books that you want me to review or get my opinion on, or apps, or any other, self-help tools that you want a professional's opinion on, let me know. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a great day. Bye.